Hello everyone. So for today's reporting, we're going to discuss about one of the famous novel of Dr. Rizal, and it is the sequel of No Limitang Here, and this is the El Filibusterismo, in English, The Reign of Greed. This novel is less dramatic, less idealism, and it's more on greed and revolution. The novel consists of 38 chapters, and it is dedicated to the three priests, Mariano Gomez, Jose Burgos, and Jacinto Zamora, also known as the Gomborza. So let's start in the timeline of El Filibusterismo. In October 1887, Rizal's family already suffered difficulties because of his book No Limitang Here. And also that time, farmers in Calamba experienced problems regarding their land. So they asked help from Rizal, and Rizal personally asked help regarding that issue. When the problem is heard, it eventually turned to a trial that Rizal attended. In that certain trial, Rizal's case awakened. This case is about his work No Limitang Here. It cursed and treated were experienced by Rizal and his family during that time. During February 3, 1888, Rizal left the Philippines because he worries that his family will be in danger. Many letters with threats are being sent to Rizal anonymously. One letter that Rizal received is from the governor stating that Rizal must find another country to stay with. While Rizal is traveling, his work didn't stop. His work was sent to Bloomingtreet, and Rizal revised and changed some plots in London.
On September 18, 1891, the book El Filibusterismo is printed at Ghent, Belgium. The book is dedicated to the three priests, Mariano Gomez, Jose Burgos, and Jacinto Zamora, or also known as the Gamborzas. The dedication of the book towards the three martyred priests became the first reason that the El Filibusterismo became known as a political book. The book composed with all the things that are happening and all the problems regarding the government system in that current situation. On March 29, 1891, Rizal continued his work on manuscript while he is still living in Paris, Madrid, and Brussels, and he finally completed the book at Biarritz. The publication of El Filibusterismo was completed in Ghent with the help of Valentin Ventura, who is a good friend of Rizal, who lent him money for the publication and printing of the book. Later, on September 22, 1891, the book is ready to spread, which is the two books were sent into Hong Kong, one for Rizal's friend named Basa, and the other one is for Sixto Lopez. In addition, Rizal took 3 years to write the second book, and Rizal is gratefully donated the original copy of the book to Valentin Ventura along with a autograph.
The mystery of El Filibusterismo's cover. El Filibusterismo's cover, translating the book title in English language, it means the reign of greed. Compared to the book cover of No Limitang Here, El Filibusterismo's cover is plain as designed by Jose Rizal. The plain cover conveys a fresh start of the Philippines and Filipinos without the trace of symbols from the events and situation in No Limitang Here. The original title has an inscription of Ferdinand Bloomingtreet, which is not found in the English translations, but it has the Tagalog translation. In Tagalog translation, madaling ipagpalagay na ang isang rebelde, filibustero, ay lihim na umaakit sa liga ng mga panitiko ng mga prayle at mga paurong nang sa gayon, wala man sa loob na sumunod sa mga panunulsol, ay dapat nilang panigan at paigtingin ang patakarang sumusunod lamang sa isang layunin. Ang maipalaganap ang mga kaisipan ng rebelyon sa kabuuhang haba at lawak ng lupain, at mahikayat ang bawat Pilipino sa paniniwalang walang katubusan liban sa separasyon mula sa inang bayan. Ferdinand Blumentritt. The characters of El Filibusterismo.
Basilio, Sisa's son, and was adopted by Capitan Tiago, boyfriend of Julie, an aspiring doctor. He is said to be cured a man of gastritis in chapter 21. Even Padre Irene respects Basilio's abilities enough to entrust Capitan Tiago to him, and because of that, Basilio spends most of El Filibusterismo managing Capitan Tiago's health. Simon, the continuation of the character of Crisostomo Ibarra, disguised as a wealthy jeweler, bent on starting a revolution. Using his wealth, he encouraged the people who experienced abuse to join him in his rebellion against the church and the government. Simon represented the revolutionaries during that time who supported the idea of holding bloody revolt against the Spanish government. His death in El Filibusterismo tells readers that Rizal does not support the armed revolution. Sagani, poet and Basilio's best friend, portrayed as emotional and reactive student leader. Pauleta Gomez's boyfriend before being dumped for fellow student Juanito Pilaes. Isagani is the symbol of the youth whose love for the country is great to the point of being branded as idealistic. Kabisang Tales, a former Kabisa di Barangay or barangay head who was known as a Luzon bandit Matanglawin. Kabisang Tales starts out as a simple farmer who cares first and foremost about providing for his family. As he gains wealth, however, he shows himself to be quite naive. His idealism and trust in the system lead him to become a Kabisa di Barangay to help the town that causes him to pay for costs with his own money. Tandang Celo, father of Kabisang Tales. He raised the sick and young Basilio after his mother Sisa had died. Tandang Celo was a woodcutter who lived in the forest of San Diego. Placido Penitente, a student of University of Santo Tomas who was very intelligent and wise but did not want, if not only by his mother's plea, to pursue his studies. Placido Penitente was originally from Batangas. He was considered a very good student and was so smart that the parish priest called him a subversive. Juliana de Dios, the girlfriend of Basilio and the youngest daughter of Kabisang Tales. Julie, like was Maria Clara, symbolizes the purity and innocence of the lower class women during Rizal's time. She would rather sacrifice rather than give up her ideals. Pauleta Gomez, the girlfriend of Isagani and the niece of Doña Victorina, the old India who passing racial identity passes herself off as a Peninsulares. In the end, she and Juanito Pilaes were wed, and she dumped Isagani, believing that she will have no future if she marries him. Paulita Gomez symbolized a caricature of a woman who chooses the best option for a more stable future. She knows what is the best for her and would take advantage of her admirers to get what she wants. Don Custodio, a famous journalist who was asked by the students about his decision for the Academia of Castellano. In reality, he was quite an ordinary fellow who married a rich woman in order to be a member of Manila's high society. Don Custodio is one of the people who expresses his support for the petition for the Academy for Spanish. Ginoong Pasta. Ginoong Pasta is a lawyer who also works as a consultant for the friars. He thinks only of himself and is willing to be nationalistic only after everyone else becomes patriotic first.
Benzaib. It was said that Benzaib looks like a friar and has been called Fray Hibanias by his critic and rivals in other papers. Another reason for the accusatory epithet is that he is always found in the company and presence of rich, powerful, and influential in society. He is well aware of this and strives to refute it by appearing independent without offering any from whom he can curry favor in the future. Father Camorra. The parish priest of Tiani, San Diego's adjacent town, he has been desiring young woman ever since. He nearly raped Julie, causing the latter to commit suicide. Father Fernandez. The priest friend of Isagani, he promised to Isagani that he and the other priest will give in to the student demand. Father Salve. Former parish priest of San Diego, Father Salve represents the clergy during the time who disguised the yearning of the flesh under the authority of the church to get away what they want. Father Sibila, a Dominican friar introduced in Noli Me Tangere, now in Il Fili, he is a vice rector of University of Santo Tomas. Father Florentino, Isagani's godfather and a secular priest, was engaged to be married but chose the priesthood instead. The story hinting at the ambivalence of his decision as he chooses an assignment to a remote place, living in solitude near the sea. Juanito Pilaes is said to have been born an Indio with mestizo blood. The identity or whereabouts of his mother are unknown, as she is not mentioned. It is suggested that his Spanish blood was passed down from his father. Juanito Pilaes was a prankster as a child and would often trick people, then hide behind others. As a result, his crouching by hiding so often caused him to always look like he was a hump of his back. Juanito is currently a student in UST. Macaray, one of Isagani's classmates at the University of Santo Tomas, he is a rich student and served as the leader of the students yearning to build a Academia di Castellano. Sandoval, the vice leader of Macaray's gang, a Spanish classmate of Isagani, he coerces his fellow classmate to lead alongside him the opening of the Spanish language academy. Pexon, Basilio's classmate who had no idea on the happening occurring around him, he suggested that they held the Max celebration.
Tadeo, Macariag's classmate, he along with the other 3 members of their gang supposedly posted the posters that thanked Don Custodio and Father Irene for the opening of the Academia di Castellano. Carolino, it is revealed that Carolino is actually Tano, Cabezang Tali's son who returned from the Carolines. Carolino recognizes his grandfather Tandang Salop. Ginoong leads, an American who holds stage plays starring severed heads. He is good friends with Simon. Dunya Victorina is a rich Filipina whose source of wealth is unknown. Married Don Tiburcio de Espadina 15 years before the events of El Filibusterismo. After left by her husband, she resides in Manila and is often seen accompanying her niece, Paulita Gomez. Quiroga, Chinese businessman who dreamed of being a consul for his country in the Philippines, had Simon's weapon inside his house. Gobernador General, the highest ranking official in the Philippines during the Spanish colonial period. This unnamed character pretends that what he is doing is for the good of the Indios, the local citizens of the country, but in reality he prioritizes the needs of his fellow Spaniards living in the country. Capitan Basilio, a rich Filipino from San Diego, father of Senang, husband of Capitana Tika, gallant to government leaders and staff and friars to avoid trouble with the favors he needed. Cabezang Andang, mother of Placido, came from Batangas. Hermana Bali, another gambler in Tiani, became Julie's mother figure. Helped to release Cabezang Talis from the hands of benefits. Hermana Penchang, Sagpang's rich pusakaw or gambler, and offered Julie to be her maid so the latter can obtain money to free Cabezang Talis. Disbelieving of Julie and her close friends, she considers herself as an ally of the friars.
The start of El Filibusterismo revolved around the main character, Simon. Simon was actually Crisostomo Ibarra of Rizal's first novel, No Limitang Here, whom everyone thought was killed by the Guardia Civil. He actually escaped and went to Cuba and became a wealthy jeweler and was able to establish connections with the prominent Spanish officials. Upon his return to the Philippines, Simon became very influential consultant of the Governor General. Simon came back with his big plans to take revenge on Spanish officials and to rescue Maria Clara, who entered the convent after learning the news about Ibarra's death. So Simon plans to launch a revolution by planting a bomb at the wedding ceremony. He started to recruit people to smuggle firearms and gain followers from the exploit and abusive region. One of his recruits was Basilio, the son of Sisa. With the help of Capitan Tiago, Basilio was able to study medicine in Manila. Simon also began to establish alliance with Cabizang Tales and his revolutionary group using his position. Simon encouraged corruptions and more aggressive government to enrich the people and thus provoke them to revolt. Simon's plan of revolution failed twice. In his first attempt, he decided not to give signal for the outbreak of the uprising. Upon hearing the news of Maria Clara's death, Basilio and the other students were arrested for forming a seditious organization. Simon arranged the release of Basilio, who became bitter and vengeful. However, he was very grateful to Simon and offered his full support for the revolution. The second attempt at starting the revolution entailed the planting of the bomb at wedding reception of Paulita Gomez and Juanito Pilais. Illustrious guests at the mansion included Father Salve and Governor General. In Simon's plan, the revolution will be triggered by his gifted couple, a kerosene lamp and explosive. When the lamps start flickering and someone's turn the wick, there would be an explosion signaling the revolutionaries to attack all the government buildings in Manila. As planned, Simon gave the lamp during the reception. Before leaving the venue, he left a note with a message, "You will die tonight," signed by Crisostomo Ibarra. Meanwhile, while Basilio saw all the people at the venue, his conscience bothered him. He saw his friend Isagani, who was secretly watching his love, Paulita, celebrating her wedding. Basilio told him about the explosive and asked him to leave the place. When Father Salvi confirmed Ibarra's writing, the guests began to panic. The lamp flickered and Padre Irene tried to turn the wing, but Isagani wanted to save Paulita, ran into the house and grabbed the lamp and threw it into the river, where it is exploded. Simon, being hunted by the Guardia Civil, took refuge in the house of a kind Filipino priest, Padre Florentino. The Guardia Civil learned about the whereabouts of the fugitives and informed the priest that they would come in the evening to arrest Simon. Instead of surrendering to the authorities, Simon poisoned himself. As the poison started to take effect in his body, he confessed to Padre Florentino about his true identity and his plans for revenge. After the long and tedious confession, the priest told Simon that his plan might fail because of unjust myth and were used. He assured Simon that there was still hope for the freedom of the country. The story ended with Father Florentino throwing Simon's jewel into the sea so that it will not be used by the greedy. He prayed that when the right time came, the treasure will be recovered and used for the noble purpose.
El Filibusterismo's theme seems to focus on how to reach a social reform and revolution. A number of chapters have long dialogues of texts that seem to resemble debates. An example being chapter 7, Simon, in which Simon tries to convince Basilio to join the bloody revolution, almost like Darth Vader trying to convince Luke to join the dark side. This represents Rizal's fading hopes for reform against his long-held abhorrence and aversion to revolution. The book focuses on the inevitable revolution and whether or not the Philippines should rebel peacefully and diplomatically or violently. The novel's dark theme contrasts greatly from Noli Me Tangeri's very hopeful and romantic atmosphere. Ibarra's change and longing. The novel's dark theme contrasts greatly from Noli Me Tangeri's very hopeful and romantic atmosphere. Ibarra's change and longing for revenge signifies his last resort for the Philippines' freedom, resorting to violence as a vengeance for what has happened to him in Noli, and how his previous efforts have had almost little to no effect to the country and the Spaniards' treatment of the Filipinos. We can see in the introduction of the book itself that states that the theme of El Peli is about colonialism. Whether or not colonialism is right, if it's to civilize a race, or should said race rebel or assimilate.